A friend brought in his pressure washer because it's working perfectly and he wanted to show it off. No, it isn't working. That's why it's here. So let's take this guy apart. This is a 1600 PSI pressure washer from a company called Active Products. I initially tried it out in my backyard. The motor runs, but absolutely no water passes through. A quick internet search shows this model is no longer available, but there are some suggestions as to what might be causing the pressure washer's problem. A blockage in the water supply, that would be my garden hose, or somewhere along the high pressure side. So I disconnected the high pressure hose and tried again. Barely a dribble. Another suggestion would be there's air in the pump and it needs to be primed. You do this by disconnecting the high pressure hose and then letting the garden hose run water through the pump a few seconds. I went beyond a few seconds with the motor off and on. The case is fairly easy to take apart. Remove the detergent dispenser and pop off those two side holsters. 8 Phillips screws are all that hold the two halves of the shell together. A hex bolt with washers keep the motor and pump assembly attached to the back shell. Two screws hold the power cord strain relief and 4 more hold the on-off switch. Then the motor and pump can be removed. The electric motor has a plastic protective case which slips right off. For these next overhead shots, dear viewers, I'll be putting on a hat to spare your eyes the glare. Let's skip ahead a bit so we can see how a pressure washer pump works. This is the path water takes through the pump, from where it enters by the hose connector to where it exits at a high pressure. There's a low pressure chamber and there's a high pressure chamber. Connecting the two are these narrow, independent conduits. There are 3 pistons doing the work of pulling and pushing water. Here's what they look like at 25% speed. The pistons are projected forward by an axial cam and then pushed back with the help of 3 sturdy springs. On their backstroke, the pistons pull water from the low pressure chamber and into their respective conduits. There are 3 check valves at the entrance of the conduits on the low pressure side These check valves act as spring-loaded one-way doors. And 3 check valves at the exit of the high-pressure side of the conduits. The 6 check valves are held in their respective wells behind 6 screw caps. Though their springs all seem to be working well, I found something really weird which I'll be getting to in just a minute. The pistons work asynchronously, much like a combustion engine's, so that when one piston is returning, another one is on its backstroke, while the third is somewhere in between. That piston, which had previously been backstroking and pulling water from the low pressure chamber and into its conduit, returns. The first check valve shuts tight, and the captive water is pushed through the second check valve and into the high pressure chamber. When the piston starts pulling down again on its backstroke, the high pressure chamber's check valve closes and the cycle repeats. This switch at the end works to shut off the motor when pressure builds up, mostly when you stop squeezing the handle or trigger. There's a piston in here which is forced forward and presses down on this kill switch, which turns off the electric motor. Electric pressure washers like this one in the 1600 to 1700 psi range typically cost anywhere from $125 to $200 depending on the brand. I can't get a definite fix on the price of this model, but my friend Maurice says he bought it at Canadian Tire maybe 8 or 10 years ago. He used it once and back in its box it went. Unfortunately, many of these lower end models are considered unrepairable, with little or no replacement parts available. What you might find are the internal check valves, O-rings, garden hose adapters, and the wand and attachments. So most people just trash their washers as soon as there's a problem. I've disassembled and reassembled this pump and motor several times without the plastic case and tested it with water and power, hoping to correct whatever it is that's keeping it from working. Here's what I found. Problem 1. On a first try, I found some crap completely obstructing an exit conduit. Cleaned, tested it again, slightly better, but not good. Problem 2. The check valves. These allow water to travel in only one direction as the piston-like plug opens either by pressure pushing in one direction or vacuum pulling from the other direction. It's fairly important that the plug engages securely with the seat, and this is usually accomplished with the help of O-rings and or washers, which this model seems to lack. I can't imagine this pump working well with just these light plastic parts seating against one another. Problem 3, and this is a bad one. I found that 2 of the pistons had seized and were not returning. So basically the pump was operating on 1 cylinder instead of 3. Loosened up the pistons, but found water had seeped into the crankcase side of the pump, into the oil, and had been whipped up into a messy emulsion. I'm not certain, but I think that would indicate some bad piston seals. Active has an inquiry page on their website, so I wrote to them this morning. They requested a serial number and a model number. This model, XE06, isn't listed on their Canadian website. I've taken this machine apart and rebuilt it so many times now, trying to understand how it works, the principles behind it, and what was wrong with it too. What is still wrong with it. Mostly I've been watching YouTube videos by people that are far more knowledgeable than myself. And now here I am trying to explain what I've learned to you in my own way, my own words. I hope this was useful for you. Yeah. Maybe this is just a very old, forgotten model, but if these were ever mass produced, I'm thinking a few of these got to market, the rest were pulled off the shelves, and all trace of their existence with time was expunged. Maybe this is, after all, a rare, priceless collector's item. I am open to inquiries and offers from pressure washers aficionados. Operators are standing by.